So while I don't plan to make it a habit to exclusively upload SCP based content, I do want to clear up some misinformation in the community based on a few more popular SCPs. And one of the more nagging misconceptions I have seen comes from people not believing that SCP-682 can be an interesting character because he has been poorly written in the past. Now, if I were to play devil's advocate for the alternate side of the argument, I would say that the prime piece of evidence against him being a compelling character would come from his oversaturation on the site as a whole. And I do agree that that is an issue. But I do think, as a writer and as a fan of horror and a fan of the SCP Foundation and the wiki itself, I believe that there are more stories to be told from his perspective and from the perspective of those working around him and for his containment. And one of the more interesting concepts I've seen writers on the site dabble with would be his motive for destroying people and wanting to kill all life. And if you've seen my earlier video on my top 5 favorite SCPs, you would know I mentioned SCP 5000. And in that tale, we see that he aligns himself with the Foundation after they purge themselves of their humanity. And it's interesting because it shows that he has something innately against whatever is in the soul of a human. And I think there's some room to play with that character, with that characterization. Furthermore, I think that you could actually paint him as a heroic antagonist if the story were to be written properly. For those of you that aren't aware, he is actually descendant in most canons from a higher eldritch being called the Scarlet King. He's one of the outer gods in the SCP lore. And I think that if you were to take SCP-682's character and play with it, you could, in the grand scheme of things, potentially justify his actions. And I think if someone were to do that, it would be a very solid foundation for an interesting tale. It's something I've actually thought about playing around with myself and trying to post. But the way you would have to do it, in my opinion, and I would like the opinion of the commenters and the SCP subreddit, but in my opinion, I think what you would have to do to justify it is you would have to point to some inherent flaw in humanity, some inherent malignancy on the universe or the multiverse at large that humanity or the Foundation is begetting. So, and I think it would be pretty easy to do that. While the SCP Foundation does do a lot to contain and protect people and the universe at large, it does lead to a lot of casualties and a lot of villainous or semi-villainous actions along the way. And I think you could actually pose a pretty compelling moral argument for why SCP-682 would see this omnicide of all living life as a form of euthanasia, for lack of a better term. And that's not really the only place you can take his character. I saw an SCP illustrated video a while back, for instance, that takes the concept of his regeneration and his longevity as far as his life and shows him outlive everything in the universe and showing that ultimately, while he is the ultimate evil, he's destined to be alone in the universe, and how sad and how lonely and disturbing that would be for any creature, even one as fucked up as SCP-682 is often portrayed. these are just a couple of my ideas as to how to make the character a little bit more compelling currently. Um, and I believe that there will be people who can come up with better ideas or more interesting ideas. And that those are the two things that I would find personally to be the most compelling, examining what it is to be in the head of that character. You know, the character of something that is omnicidal, that is raging forever. Why is it like that is the key question to me. And I would like to know your guys' thoughts in the comments and on Reddit. Anyway, I hope you guys have a blessed day, and I will catch you in the next video.